Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Today we have a new set of crazy stories about crazy people for you to enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Just work where you're scheduled to work. That's it. Hi, y'all. I currently work at a big box store that you'll probably be able to figure out fairly quickly by the end of this. There are only two main characters, myself and an assistant manager, AM. Anyways, yesterday I was scheduled to work as a cashier. However, my main thing is customer service, so on days that I'm scheduled to cashier, every once in a while, I'm most likely at the service desk anyways because there's never a closer for service desk. This has never been a problem, and to be honest, some days I don't think managers ever even notice I was supposed to be on a register. So it was an extremely busy day. We had way too many people in the store and not enough cashiers. An assistant manager decided she'd take it upon herself to get the lines down, paging every cashier to the front, including some on lunch. Eventually, I get paged to the front. It's 6 p.m. and all the other service desk associates went home. I have a line and I'm getting it down, so I ignore the page with plans to let them know where I'm at after I get through the customers. Not 2 minutes go by when she goes through her list again. I start rushing, and once I finished, I went to tell her that I was at the service desk. Here's how that went down. Me. Hey, I heard you paging me to the front, but I'm already here. I'm at the service desk. There's no one over there. AM. I paged you 10 minutes ago. I need people on the registers. You're not supposed to be at the service desk right now. It's supposed to be... Both closers called off, and there's no one there. That's why I went over there. No one sent you there? Well, no, but then you don't go there. You don't supervise yourself. We know what's going on. If we need you there, we'll put you there. Open register 6, and from now on, work where you're scheduled to work, and nothing else. Understood? Understood, I guess. Anyway, she did let me stay at the service desk, but not without continuing to bitch about how I shouldn't go where I want and all that. It pissed me off, so I said, F it, I'll just do that from now on. Well, guess what? Today I also had a cashier day, and the first thing I did after clocking in today was ask which register I should open. Pretty smooth. It's 1 p.m. and the service desk has its associates. 5 p.m. rolls around, and this is where I know it's going to get interesting because once again the two closers called off. This happens too often. Right now there's no attendance penalties due to recent events. I watched the last service desk associate for the day leave and continued ringing people out. I was giddy with anticipation. The AM was supervising the front end again, and this time I did as she told me. I stayed at the register. Well, it finally happened. The first customer. She rolls up to the service desk and looks around and waits. Then someone else rolls up behind her too. Now I'm watching and waiting for the AM to notice when the first lady decided to walk back and ask the nearest cashier, presumably, if there'd be someone to help her. I don't know what the cashier told her, but she walked back and waited again. There are now 4 customers in line for an unmanned desk. When the 5th person lined up is when she finally noticed, and then people were already antsy. I saw her scrambling behind the desk and looking around. I didn't dare make eye contact, LOL. I kept ringing people up. Well, she had to help the customers, and not only that, but her pride was so much that she didn't actually want to ask me for help. She closed the service desk today, and by the end, she was angry as all hell and said she never wanted to cover customer service again. She closed it an hour early. Weak. And our next story. You'd better not say anything bad about me in there. Roger that. I used to work as a bank teller when I was 20. I hated it. Behind the counter, it was me, 2 old ladies, and my boss we'll call Christine. More to come on her, not her real name. It wasn't a busy bank at all, so it was mostly just dumb small talk, agonizing silence, terrible coffee, and listening to the endless outdated top 40 music. Think Shania Twain and Uncle Kracker. Christine was a real conundrum to me. On one hand, she was insanely attractive. I'm more of an au naturel kind of guy, but she always wore intensely low-cut stuff, and some days it was a real saving grace to an otherwise crappy shift. On the other hand, she was horrible to us. She was only maybe 25 and had a chip on her shoulder the size of Texas. She had a kid very early on in life and seemingly had the fun sucked out of her years ago. I both genuinely hated her and was very attracted to her. The hatred tended to win most days, but it was a pretty perplexing hatred. She would often condescend the old ladies, but really like to beat me down as her focus. Any mistake I made, she would bully me, shout at me, belittle me, anything she could to make her feel like the queen bee. She was on rare occasion not so bad, but most often made us all miserable. I think she had it out for me, especially because I was a 20-year-old little punk and didn't mind firing back at her if I thought she was being unreasonable. The girl blew up on me 40-plus times while I was employed there, always in a public fashion. After about a year of this miserable job, I told the branch manager I was quitting. It was mostly due to Christine, but I was also just bored crapless and had reached a breaking point. I didn't go into great detail why, but had mentioned how Christine treated me and the others pretty poorly most days. So I put in my 2 weeks, realized I would be jobless hours later, and immediately tried to call off my resignation after a change of heart the next day. The branch manager listened, but ultimately decided that he didn't accept my rescinding the resignation I gave him. Whatever. I was fickle. Now enter that sweet, sweet MC. On my last day there was a very palpable vibe that Christine couldn't be happier I was leaving, and that the little old ladies were upset they were losing their buffer to her tyranny. With a few hours to go, the head of HR comes downstairs and motions me toward an office. IDK if what I said triggered the branch manager to make the call or if this was normal procedure on a last day. She wanted to do an exit interview. I'd never heard of this, but apparently it's pretty common in offices. I shrugged and said, sure, let's do it. The HR lady goes in the office to sit down, and before I went in, I looked back at Christine and gave her the biggest mean-spirited grin. You could tell she was worried about what I was about to say. In one final bit of hostility, she told me, you better not say anything bad about me in there. I promise I will F up your life if you do. I kept smirking at her and walked into the interview. It took me a minute to realize how I could play this, but as I got a few questions in, the plan unveiled itself. I took the most extreme high-road approach possible, just as Christine had asked, and didn't say a single bad thing about her the whole time. The HR woman pressed me over and over again to be honest with her as she had heard things, but I stood my ground. I laid it on as thick as I possibly could, using sentences like, you know, Christine can be tough on us sometimes, but I really believe she's wonderful at her job overall and truly cares about this branch, and she always demands the best out of us. You can't fault her for that. It was 15 minutes of pure horse crap. I gave Christine the same crap-eating grin on the way out of that interview as I did on the way in to set my plan in motion. I knew when they interviewed Christine right after, her immaturity would lead her to rip me to shreds with that HR lady. That is precisely what she did. I didn't have a grander reason for why I did it other than I wanted to make her look stupid/crazy on my way out the door. Apparently what she said to that HR woman about me was so bad, it left the HR woman confused. So I went home and was happy to never return. 2 days later, one of the old lady tellers calls me. She said HR had been doing an investigation into what was going on and had interviewed the whole office about our relationship. All the salespeople, mortgage people, IT guy, you name it. Every single one of them said the same thing, that I was good at my job and she was unfairly hard on me all the time. Christine ended up getting demoted and HR called me to apologize for what had been going on. They offered me another job at a different branch if I was interested. I took it because I didn't want to be jobless. I worked there for a few more months, realized I still hated banking and quit soon after. But slaying that boss with my revenge was beautiful. And our last story. You want proof? Sure. I work in an office environment and my job is mostly comprised of admin tasks, entering data, answering calls, project and offline work, creating schedules, capacity planning, etc., and a component of more on-demand, real-time work. It's a fairly stressful working environment, and as such, department headcount can fluctuate wildly, depending on just how much pressure the boss puts on us and how green adjacent pastures are. At this point, a couple of years back, I'd been with the company for at least 3 to 4 years and had endured several bosses as well as large-scale restructuring. While not perfect, my attendance was very good, especially in comparison to my colleagues at the time, some of whom had children, so I understood emergencies happened. I rarely had to call in sick and would usually just suffer through sinus headaches and not full-strength migraines because we would often be short-staffed for our workload. I was also the sort of person who could cover a shift at a moment's notice because I was pretty flexible with timings and lived only 20 minutes away. Yes, shift work because we had to work the hours of ops the business units we supported worked. Anyway, one Friday afternoon I was feeling like absolute garbage and clearly coming down with something fluey. It wasn't a day where I was doing the on-demand work tasks or working the closing shift, so I basically told everyone I was going to leave early. Colleagues and boss had no issues, so I packed up and headed home for a fun weekend full of fever and pumping myself full of OTC drugs. Monday rolls around, and due to the lack of sleep and general malaise, I still feel like garbage. I know the limits I can push my body to function, especially when my work demands I be largely coherent, and I know going into work is a bad idea. So I fire off a message to my boss saying I really need another full day to recover from death flu. I'm not working a closing or opening shift, so it should be fine. See you tomorrow, etc. My boss, ever the fan of unnecessary long responses, comes back with a mini essay basically saying he wants me to get a doctor's note because I've been sick since Friday. B, what? First of all, where I live, there was no legal requirement to provide a note unless you were absent for more than 3 consecutive shifts. A law which has since changed to you can't request one at all. Second, I just told you I needed to rest, and now you want me to go out in public and hang out with a bunch of other sickies? Third, I had only left maybe 1.5 hours prior to the end of my scheduled shift on Friday, not a full day. I know full well if I try to argue any of these points, however, I'll be met with another wall of text laced with throwaway sentiments of concern for my well-being. So I say, sure, I'll get you a note. Okay, you need some proof? I pulled on some barely presentable leaving the house clothes, head to the walk-in clinic in sniffly misery, and wait a couple of hours before seeing the doctor. Doctors are pretty easygoing, especially since they get paid for doctor's notes. Not a lot, but still for a basic fee of $20, you're often met with, sure, when should I write you'll be returning to work? If memory serves me, this particular doc asked directly, you need 3 days to recover, right? Yup. Doctor sends me on my way with a nasal spray and a note saying I won't be in until Friday, upon recommendation from my physician. I return to my apartment grinning and send my boss short text advising he'll need to cover my upcoming closing shifts, doctor's orders. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.